My name's Pat Bennett. I'm the originator of the Pat's Brown rubber legs, or the Bennett rubber legs. The Solitude fly sells to fly shops throughout the world. This fly I came up with in 1995, in the summer of 95, when I was floating Box Canyon with my son, in Box Canyon on the Henry's Fork. And my son and I would float in a one-man pontoon boats. And I started turning over rocks and looking at the stonefly nymphs underneath the rocks, and realized that, hey, everybody's using this black girdle bug with white legs, and these things didn't have white legs, and they weren't all black. They looked dark brown or even tan. And later on in my guiding career, I started seeing other ones that looked orange or black and kind of white through them. And so I came up with some other colors to cover those things. So I went up to West Yellowstone and bought some true brown chenille, some size 6 Dairiki hooks, some .025 lead-free wire, and then American Choice, at that time a company was making Superfloss, and I grabbed what I thought was brown chenille or brown Superfloss for legs and the tail and the antenna, because it was more flexible and seemed to have more lively movement in it. And I took that, but I had grabbed olive, and that olive actually in some light looked brown, in some light it looked green. And when I got home, I realized that I didn't grab brown ones, I grabbed these others. So I went ahead and tied up 6 of the flies, and my son and I the next day went and were floating down. We were catching fish on Montana nymphs, and then they quit hitting those, and I stopped about halfway down and in a spot, and within 3 casts landed a real nice rainbow in the 17-18 inch range, and then a couple other rainbows. And my son was coming down, and I called him over and gave him a couple. And the last half of that trip, we just ripped fish on the rubber legs. So that became my #1 stonefly nymph. And when I started guiding in 1997, I had a whole bunch of them tied up for clients, and we started catching fish on them. And the second year in 98, when I was really guiding a lot, I had some clients, 2 doctors from Chicago. We were in Box and we were catching a lot of fish on them, and they said, "What's the name of this bug that we're catching all these fish on?" And I said, I haven't even named it. And one of the doctors said, "Well, we're gonna name it the Box Canyon Viagra. It gets those rainbows up and jumping." And so I didn't like that much, and came up with Pat's Brown rubber legs. And that's how we came about it. And it's in this brown, it's in black and brown and black, black and tan, or black and white. It depends on what variegated chenille you can get. Orange and brown. I can show you pictures I've taken with orange-looking stonefly nymphs crawling out of the river, and olive and brown, and a purple one that kind of looks black in some light, and different kinds of shades of it, and tan and brown, and all those are carried by Solitude, and that sells to fly shops. So if your fly shop doesn't have the Solitude Patch Brown rubber legs, then your fly shop is selling a knockoff. And what you really want is the true one. I appreciate you watching this video and hope you do very well on this fly, as I have. Thank you very much. Some Pat Bennett, the originator of the Patch Brown rubber legs, and I'm going to show how I tie it, which might not be the same way a lot of other people, and I know it isn't, but this is how I tie mine. And I started off, and I haven't changed the way I do it for many years. And I began by putting on a .025 wire, lead-free wire, and to weight it. And it comes out to be about 22 wraps on a size 6 hook. And this hook that I'm using right here is a Dairiki, which is no longer made, 285. And it's a kind of a curved hook, and I really like it. So I've got that on now, the weight, and then I use black thread and just go over it. I don't cover the lead-free wire, but I do lock it in with a lot of wraps on there. And I go back to the back end of the hook, just back to the bend, basically. And then from here, I just tie in the brown chenille. And it should be true brown, not have any red in it or anything like that, because you don't see those in the salmon flies, that red. And here I put on, after I get the chenille on, I attach the tail, and I'm using Super Floss. The original color is no longer made. They haven't gotten it right, but it's an olive, a true olive that has a hint of brown. This is a brown leg now, and I thought it was brown, but American Choice did a true olive, which was a touch of brown and a touch of green, or olive green, and it works really well. But American Choice is no longer around, and so you got to substitute, and I've substituted with this brown leg Super Floss. I like the Super Floss because it gives it more movement, and these legs do not deteriorate like the regular big rubber legs. The original ones that were girdle bugs with the black with white legs, and I didn't really care for those, and that's why I came up with this one. And I just, looking at the bugs, wanted to have something that was closer in color and size. And so I'm tying in each leg separately. A lot of people put in a triangular type leg thing, and that seems to be a little bit harder to do. So after I've gotten in the legs, the tail, and the antenna, and which I'm doing now, I bring that forward. And a lot of tiers have told me this was the hardest thing that they had to deal with, were the legs. I don't know, I just kind of picked up on how to do it, and it worked out well. I've clipped off the chenille to the length that I kind of basically know how big it is. And what I'm doing now is kind of turning that, tightening up the chenille as I go. so it'll be a tighter wrap around and look more natural. And so I start at the tail, come forward, and I'm just making sure that I just do touching wraps, and I go over each one of the legs and in front, and again over it and in front, and then over it and in front. It kind of gives the legs a look of bending back like the bug naturally the legs look. Tying down the chenille at the head and giving a few wraps on that. Now what I like to do is go right in front, but then right through the legs, or the antenna right there, and then go right underneath a little bit so it lifts it up. And then what I like to do to really secure it is take some super glue and just put it on the thread and go over that a few times, and then use my whip finisher for about a 3-wrap whip finish. 1, 2, 3, tighten it down, and we're finished, except for making sure that the legs and the antenna are all the same length. I just pull those up, cut them straight across, and go back to the tail. Gonna make that, and we're finished with the fly. And that's how I do my rubber legs, and I started doing that in 1995.